Watch this before staying at Westgate Lakes Resort in Orlando, Florida, because this is my honest review of this hotel and resort after actually staying here with my girlfriend and my 8-year-old daughter. I'm not sponsored, I paid for this stay myself, and everything I'm sharing is based on our real experience. What we liked, what surprised us, and a few things you should know before you book. This is my honest review of Westgate Lakes Resort and Spa, and I'm keeping this super down to earth and real. Going into this trip, I didn't have some huge expectation that this place was going to be incredible. If you've stayed in Orlando before, you already know there are tons of hotels that look amazing online, but when you actually show up, the room is smaller than expected, it feels cramped, and you're basically just tolerating the space while you go do theme park stuff. That's honestly what I thought this was going to be, a decent place to sleep, nothing more. But Westgate Lakes surprised me because it didn't really feel like a hotel in the traditional sense. It felt way more like staying in an apartment or an Airbnb, just with resort amenities layered on top. And if you're traveling with kids or staying longer than a couple nights, that difference matters way more than people realize. Having space changes the entire flow of the trip. It changes how relaxed you feel, how organized you are, and honestly how patient everyone stays throughout the day. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what the rooms were like, how the service actually was, the pools, the lake, the food options, activities for kids, the location, and whether or not I'd personally stay here again. I'm not trying to hype anything up. I'm just telling you what it was actually like to stay here as a family. The first thing that stood out to me right away was the size of the room. This did not feel like a standard hotel room at all. You're not stepping over suitcases. You're not constantly moving things around just to exist. It genuinely felt like a small apartment or condo where you could spread out and actually be comfortable. We stayed in a room with one king bed, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that me, my girlfriend, and my 8-year-old daughter all slept in that bed comfortably. And if you've ever traveled with a kid, you know how rare that is. Usually someone ends up sideways, someone steals all the blankets, and someone wakes up cranky. That didn't happen here. We all slept well. And starting each day rested made a huge difference in how the trip felt overall. Another thing that really made this feel less like a hotel was the kitchen setup. A lot of the rooms here come with full kitchens or kitchenettes, and this ended up being one of our favorite parts of the stay. Being able to make breakfast in the room, keep snacks around, and not eat out for every single meal made the whole trip feel calmer and less rushed. Especially with a kid, being able to eat on your own schedule instead of rushing out the door hungry is a big deal. It also saves money, which adds up fast in Orlando. Theme parks, food, snacks, drinks, it all gets expensive quickly. Having a kitchen gave us flexibility and made the trip feel more like a vacation instead of constantly spending money every time someone was hungry. Our room also had a jacuzzi tub, and I'll be honest, I didn't think much of it at first. I figured it would be one of those things you try once and forget about. That turned out to be completely wrong. My daughter loved the jacuzzi so much that we used it multiple times a day. We'd go swimming, come back to the room, jacuzzi, long day out, back to the room, jacuzzi, sometimes even just randomly during the day because she thought it was fun. From a parent perspective, that kind of built-in entertainment is huge. It gave us something fun to do without planning, without spending extra money, and without leaving the room. And the jacuzzi itself was a good size and actually worked well, which isn't always the case in hotel rooms. The room overall felt clean and well maintained, not luxury level fancy, but clean, comfortable, and clearly designed for people staying longer than just one night. It felt like a place you could actually relax in, not just crash at after a long day. Now let's talk about service, because this was another area where Westgate Lakes stood out to me. I want to say this up front, Westgate does have a timeshare side to it, and yes, they can be a little pushy about that. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't exist, just go in aware of it and don't let it affect your vacation mindset. Once we were checked in and settled into the room though, the actual service we received was honestly excellent. Almost immediately after we got into the room, I received a text message from the front desk asking if we needed anything, and that text conversation stayed open for our entire stay. We used it multiple times. We needed extra pillows, extra blankets, and instead of calling the front desk, waiting on hold, or dealing with the usual hotel process, we just sent a text, and everything showed up quickly. That might sound like a small thing, but when you're traveling, especially with kids, that kind of setup makes everything feel smoother and easier. It felt modern, convenient, and like we were genuinely being taken care of. One of the biggest selling points of this resort, especially for families, is the pools. There are a lot of pools here. The property is spread out into different sections, and many of those sections have their own pool, hot tub, and smaller kiddie pool or splash area. There are around 7 different pool areas total, and they're all designed a little differently. That matters because it never felt like the entire resort was crowded into one spot. If one pool felt busy, we just walked to another area. Some pools were heated and some weren't, which gave us options depending on the weather and time of day. There are also poolside bars at some of the pools where you can order drinks and food without leaving the pool. And I'm not exaggerating when I say we probably spent close to half of our entire trip just swimming. The pools alone made the resort feel like part of the vacation instead of just the place you sleep between park days. The resort does have an on-site water park with things like a wave pool and water slides, but it happened to be closed while we were there. Honestly though, even with it closed, we didn't feel like we were missing out because the regular pool setup was already more than enough for us. What impressed me was how they handled it. Because the water park was closed, the resort accommodated us by allowing us to use a water park at one of their other nearby resorts for free. That's a solid move and kept the experience positive instead of frustrating. Another thing I really liked about this resort is that it sits next to a large lake, and they've actually built the experience around it. There are walking paths along the lake, paddle boat rentals, and a long dock system that leads out to a large gazebo area. We spent a lot of time walking around the lake in the evenings, especially around sunset, and the views were honestly incredible. If you have a room overlooking the lake like we did, you'll get some really nice views without even trying. It added a calm, peaceful element that balanced out the busy days in Orlando really well. As far as food goes, there are on-site options, including a bar and restaurant, pizza, and an ice cream shop. We ordered pizza one night, and it was actually really good, which is always a gamble at resorts. My daughter also loved the arcade on site, which was perfect for downtime or evenings when we wanted something easy to do. There's also a Walmart just a couple blocks away, which pairs perfectly with having a kitchen in your room. One grocery run, and suddenly breakfast, snacks, and drinks are handled for the rest of the trip, which makes everything easier. Quick side note before I keep going, if you're watching this and thinking about staying here, I did put a link in the description where you can check current prices and availability for Westgate Lakes Resort through Expedia. That's the same platform I personally use when booking trips. Just to be fully transparent, it is an affiliate link, so it helps support the channel at no extra cost to you. All right, back to the review. Location-wise, the resort is in a great spot. It's right down the road from SeaWorld and close to all the major tourist attractions in Orlando. We did a lot during the week we were there, and it never felt like a long drive back to the resort. It worked really well as a home base. There's also a pirate-themed mini golf course on site. It's not something that's going to take up your whole day, but it's a fun little activity for kids and families, especially if you want to do something without leaving the property. One thing I want to touch on that I think really matters, especially if you're traveling as a family, is the overall pace of staying here. Orlando trips can get exhausting fast. You're waking up early, you're out all day, you're dealing with crowds, lines, heat, and stimulation nonstop. And what I liked about staying here is that when you came back to the resort, it actually felt like you could slow down. There were nights where we didn't feel pressured to go do something else. We'd come back, walk around the property, hit the pool again, or just sit by the lake and let the day wind down. That's something I don't always feel at hotels, where you're basically just coming back to a room to sleep and recharge for the next morning. I also noticed how spread out everything was. Even when the resort felt busy, it never felt overwhelming. You weren't constantly surrounded by noise or chaos. There were quiet pockets where you could just relax, and that made a big difference for us, especially with a kid who needs some downtime after long days. Another small but important thing is how easy it was to just stay flexible. If plans changed, it wasn't a big deal. If we decided not to go out one night, there was still plenty to do. If we wanted to eat in the room instead of going out, we could. If we wanted to spend an entire afternoon swimming instead of driving somewhere, that felt like a win, not a compromise. And I think that's really the biggest takeaway from this stay. It wasn't just about the amenities or the location, it was about how the resort fit into the rhythm of the trip instead of dictating it. It made the whole experience feel less rushed, less stressful, and more like an actual vacation instead of a checklist. That's something I didn't fully appreciate until we were already there, and it's one of the reasons I genuinely consider staying here again. So overall, after staying here, this has been my honest review of Westgate Lakes Resort in Orlando, Florida. It's not perfect, and you should be aware of the timeshare side of things going in, but the space, the pools, the lake views, the service, and how family-friendly it is really stood out in a positive way for us. If you're traveling with kids staying longer than just a couple days, or you want something that feels more like an apartment than a traditional hotel room, this place makes a lot of sense. So again, this was my honest review of Westgate Lakes Resort in Orlando, Florida. No hype, no fluff, just a real breakdown of what it's actually like to stay here. If you have questions about the rooms, the pools, or staying here with kids, drop them in the comments. And if you want more honest hotel tours and travel reviews like this, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one.